Welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rook with Tommy Grisafi, Advanced Trading. A higher day on Friday in the livestock grains, setting back, and it was a pretty tough down day in both the wheat and the soybean market, Tommy. And of course, kind of disappointing to see us fade some pretty strong export news there to end the week. What was the pressuring factor on Friday in the grains? Were we taking out weather premium? Was it harvest pressure? What was it?
A combination of three really bearish things. Russia decided they do want to export wheat, and they're going to export a lot of it. The weather started to get better for many countries that were having a problem. So Brazilian crops are getting planted. Argentina, things looking better down south. You throw in other issues like we have a rallying dollar currently. The dollar's been on a heck of a move. As that dollar gets stronger, commodities go lower sometimes. Not to mention old school fundamentals. It is harvest. We're in the middle of October. Soybean harvest is finishing up. We're right in the middle of corn harvest. I'm hearing from clients across America that corn bushels are absolutely wonderful. I'm sure someone out there is watching this, listening. They're going to say, Grisafi doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, not everyone's is perfect, but there's enough good corn bushels out there that it's really starting to weigh the market down. Now, here's the good news. All those big bushels of corn, beans, wheat, everything are starting to be hit with demand. We're seeing that demand come in underneath 8 o'clock export sales, nice little amounts being reported from all types of country. We've seen a major purchase of corn. We're seeing China keep dipping in for those beans. China's got that fine line to walk where they're waiting. Is South America going to grow a crop? If not, they got to run back to the United States and gobble up a bunch of beans. You know, where their second choice, they like to buy beans. They much rather buy them from South America. They had to buy some from us. We'll see if that continues. Keep an eye also, Michelle, on Ukraine weather, Australian weather. It's not just about the United States anymore. There's a lot of countries that can grow grain.
So with the poor technical closes, especially in soybeans and wheat on Friday, and we had a lower weekly closes in all the grains, did the funds keep pressing this market down back into the contract lows, or do we start seeing more and more of that demand you talked about coming at the market to provide support?
That's a great question. For farmers and ranchers out there, they got to be wondering how low is this going to go? I don't know if you know, but I heard we have an election coming up in 15 to 20 days. Who's going to win? Will it matter to agriculture in America? I think it will. Will we know the election results the day of the election? Are we all going to play nicely here when it comes to world trade? And so there's a lot of tough talk going in the election. The polls are starting to change. 49% of the people aren't going to be happy with the results, but it is going to matter to the American producer because we do export so much grain. So I think secretly, quietly, it's the stuff nobody wants to talk about. Keep an eye on those polls, keep an eye on election day. And as you know, we have the most grain we're going to have for the next 12 months. Right now, today, Michelle, the most soybeans on stock we're going to have is right now, as all that harvest comes in, hits that old crop, all that corn harvest comes in, hits that old crop, and then slowly we start exporting it. We start using it domestically. We start doing all the magical things we do with grain. But right now, today, we have the most. You asked a great question. I wish I knew the answer. I think I know what's going on. The funds were covering, they covered aggressively. I think the funds are already taking losses on fresh longs that they just initiated 2 weeks ago. I think the funds started puking those here the last few days. Looks like in the next few days, we'll see that the funds are initiating fresh shorts as we go in the year end.
So as we said, we did some chart damage to the November soybean chart. So let's look at that and whether or not we go down and take out the 955 contract low.
Yeah, absolutely. You have a chart here. Thanks for showing this. We're not far away. I'll draw a line as best as I can here. And we are right there on that line. And you and I had talked off air. That's November 24 soybeans. What's scarier for the American producer, the world producer, is we have to grow a crop again next year, Michelle. And so when I look at Nov 25 beans, look at this. We're all the way back. We round tripped. If you're aggravated with what happened in soybeans here in America, a few weeks ago, you could have sold Nov 25 beans at $11. We're all the way back testing those 10-15 lows. So as a commodity broker, as a risk manager, we're thinking about multiple years, and all the years all of a sudden look ugly. Somehow you and I need to spin this around before we get out of here and talk about who it benefits. And that's probably Look at the great price action in milk. Look at the great price action in cattle. Someone's able to gobble up all these corn, wheat, soybeans at better prices and turn it into something. The person who's sad is the American producer, the world producer of corn, wheat, and soybeans are starting to struggle. They're now producing grain below their cost production and looking for someone to magically make it all better. And that's what happens in these markets, Michelle.
So let me ask you, Tommy, the dollar that we lost here in the November beans, both in the 24 and the 25, was that just the market removing weather premium because there are some forecasted rains for South America? And now you've got CONAB projecting that crop in Brazil at like 166 million metric tons, which would be a record.
Yeah, well, a couple things changed. We had a weather pattern change here for South America and everything else. We also had all that fresh money coming to China. We're still seeing gold hit all-time highs. I honestly think people are confused. Professional traders are confused. I think China bought a fair amount of beans just to hedge their use. They have all those people to feed, all those animals to feed. They cannot wait around and say, we hope Brazil grows a big crop. But as the weather changes, not only in South America, but Russia and Ukraine and everywhere else, and with all this money swooshing around with the funds, when you talk about the dollar, it creates confusion. Confusion in my world, Michelle, is volatility. Volatility is your friend, but you have to be on the right side of it.
Right. Do you believe that maybe the stimulus that they're throwing at the market in China or at the economy in China is just not working?
It seems to be doing well for Bitcoin and gold. But yes, I would agree with you. For the effect they wanted, they had that massive short covering rally in their stock market. But you have to build a house on a solid foundation, Michelle. And as we know, government money is okay, but it needs to be paid back. You just can't give people money, stimulate the markets, and say everything's okay. There will be an effect for that. And I think the markets, the world markets at first were caught off guard. Wow, China's doing something big. Then they bounced back and thought about it and said, they're doing something big because there's a problem with their economy.
We've talked about all the things that are pressing the market. Included in that is the fact that the funds maybe have a little bit of ammunition to go back to the short side of this market. Do they do that, do you think, or not? What's their next move?
I do. I think they already did it. I think we'll see over the next few days that the funds went from a massive short to flat to a tiny bit long. I would say going home today, they are short again. And of course, as you know, that data that comes out is a little stale. We're always getting it 3 days late, 5 days late. But from the price action I'm seeing and from how ugly those charts looked, I think the funds are short again.
Is there anything else from an outside market perspective that we should talk about? Gold's hitting new highs at the same time the stock market is hitting new highs. That usually doesn't happen, does it? What's the disconnect there?
No, great putting that two together. You look at gold as a flight to quality. Oh, the stock market's down 10%, gold rallies. The United States stock market is going home at all-time highs in the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ. Nvidia, the hottest stock in the world, just hit all-time highs today. So you're seeing buying in the stock market. Now, it is the month of October, and October is famous for stock market crashes. 1929, 1987, all those good numbers. But in 2024, 20 days out to the election, the United States stock market all-time highs, gold all-time highs. I think that's what has everyone shaking their head. Let's hope that scenario you and I talked about, where the sell-off in grains is met by phenomenal demand, and we could start to work our way out of here.
Yeah. Do you think that's the silver lining here that you were talking about?
I hope so. We'll look for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, big exports. Again, this week we nice numbers coming out of Mexico. Remember when we used to do reports saying Mexico wasn't going to buy our corn? That sure looks like it changed. They are feeding their people. In the whole world, we do have a lot of mouths to feed. The fact the United States farmer produced a ton of grain well below their cost production and sells it to the world, United States grain is on sale to anyone who can't grow it as well as we can.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like we're at a value level right now. We're competitive. I also feel like maybe Mexico's buying because they're a little concerned if Trump becomes president, we might renegotiate USMCA. Am I wrong about that?
With Trump, there's a lot of tough talk. Now, I'm
Yep.
not, he doesn't call my cell phone, but I do listen and I do watch the video clips. And this week, things really started to go well for the Trump campaign. I think it was a rough week for the Harris camp. That can change. Remember, Michelle, when we went home on election day in 2016, there was a 99% chance that Hillary Clinton was the next president of the United States. Most people didn't even think he could win. So the fact that Trump's ahead in the polls today, this week, it could change quickly. But what you have to understand and what people have to ask themselves, and maybe people don't want us talking about politics, but it matters to each and every one of us. Tell me which candidate is great for American agriculture. That's what people should have their head scratched at. And tell me, why do we not have a farm bill as we come into the 2024 election?
Let's round out talking about the cattle market. We did close higher on Friday, but are going to have a lower weekly close despite some steady to better cash trade. Is that market getting tired, or will we go back up and retrace and take out the recent highs?
Great question. Fundamentally, we have the energy and strength to take it out. But are you willing to wait for those next few dollars when you know the cattle can have a $20 pullback at any time? Fundamentally, we shouldn't go down that much, but we've done it twice this year. The cattle market's always 5 minutes away from some outbreak of something, some type of talk of not being able to export. A lot of tough talk on what's happening with tariffs and whatnot, depending on which candidate wins. And what's it mean to cattle? We know the numbers aren't there. We just can't magically make more cattle. And with the stock market all-time highs, it gives the cattle men and women comfort knowing we are in a heck of a bull market when it comes to beef in America.
Yeah, and it looks like the funds are buying on that. All right, thanks so much for joining us. That's Tommy Grisapi, Advanced Trading and Markets Now.